Welcome to Warfighter Sanctuary. Here, we talk with local veteran business owners, their military journey, civilian life, their business, and the services they offer.
I am the soldier's lost voice. Come on!
Lock it in and listen up. Here's your host, Andre Rivera.
Is this what they want?
Welcome to our show. Today, we're interviewing Raven Drone Solutions and the CEO, Juan Ocampo. He's a United States Marine who served in avionics, fixing Harriers, and he transitioned later to embassy duty where he specialized in security and worked in Croatia, India, Malta, and the Republic of the Congo. Juan, so now you're the CEO of Raven Drone Solutions. So tell us a little bit about the services you provide.
So first of all, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
The services that I provide are primarily three things. It is aerial photography and videography, industrial inspections, and mapping and 3D modeling. And we have had really a very wide array of clients, ranging from bloggers, influencers, realtors, to even a generator company that wanted corporate videos, as well as tower companies and things like that. So really our reach is wide, and we're primarily in Miami, Florida, but we've actually been able to get gigs offered to us in Hawaii and Puerto Rico, so we're pretty much nationwide.
Well, so you'll travel to those places.
Yes.
Outstanding. Can you tell us a little bit about, because you mentioned more than just the real estate aspect. So what would you do in, for example, in real estate, and then tell me the towers, you mentioned towers and you mentioned security as well.
Yes. So for real estate, for example, I could just do a simple couple of different pictures of a certain area, like of a certain house or a lot or something like that, to even doing interior videos, like taking a small little, it's called an FPV drone, and flying in from a window, or taking some really cool dynamic videos for their social media or things like that to make it a really engaging video. And then, for example, like doing towers. So I'll go to a tower, I'll take enough pictures where they can render it into a 3D model, and the tower companies can actually see the health of an asset by creating a digital twin. And instead of having to send somebody up there and see what's happening, they can just really look at it from a computer screen and save a lot of time and money in the process doing it. And even for security, for example, I have an extensive security background. And even though I haven't used drones for security, at least as part of my business yet, I do have a part-time job working with a private company that works for a police department, which I'm not going to name. Basically using a lot of the services that I already offer, and as well as surveillance and patrolling and stuff like that, I can service the security industry using that.
Outstanding. Now, you mentioned also assets. So how do you help in that realm?
So, for example, insurance companies or maintenance, property management, whatever the case might be. You know, if you digitize an asset, so by that I mean you take enough photos where you can make a 3D model, and they can see what is happening with that asset.
Like a construction site? Like
a construction site.
Okay.
Or towers, or let's just say roof inspections even for insurance. Like let's just say a property manager wants to have a 3D model of a building before a hurricane hits. So I could do that for them, and they can use it for documentation purposes. And instead of sorting out through a million different photos that basically all look the same, or might miss a few spots, they can actually just have an entire 3D model that they can look at. And let's just say the storm comes, and they want me to come back and reshoot that whole area again. They can actually show the insurance companies, hey, listen, this is what I have here. I have this before and after. This is the damage that was done, by the storm. So, because obviously we know how insurance companies work, especially here in Florida.
Exactly.
The insurance industry is insane out here, and right here you have like the documentation that says, look, this is what I got. Also, there's software that I've used in the past where you can annotate, defects.
And any changes over time. It'll
So,
detect, like imagery, like military imagery, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And
excellent.
especially when you have it as a 3D model, not only is it impressive to look at, but it makes it so much easier for documentation, changes over time, progress, things like that.
Outstanding. So what else? So where do you see this business taking from? I mean, is this a scalable business right now?
So it is definitely scalable. So one thing I gotta say is that even though the drone industry is not necessarily new, like it's been going on for at least a decade now, it's only going to grow from here. You're going to see a lot of industries, construction, insurance, security, you name it. They're going to start incorporating drones more and more, whether that's hiring pilots to be employees or outsourcing the work to companies like myself. It's really only going to grow from here. The technology is advancing every single day, and the FAA is starting to make laws more friendly towards the drone industry. So it's only going to go from here. I mean, even Amazon, Walmart, and all these other big companies, DHL, for example, they're starting to use drones that are doing delivery services. So it's really only going to go from here. And I obviously want to scale my business because technology changes every day. And what may work right now as we're talking is probably not going to work in 5 years from now. So you got to constantly.
So you have to stay right on innovation.
You have to stay ahead of it. Mm-hmm.
So Juan, with your security background, have you found innovative ways to use your technology or your capability with the drones to enhance security?
100%. So I've actually talked this over with people that are in the security industry currently, and I've talked to them about, okay, they think, oh, well, drones are just for pictures, right? I'm like, well, not necessarily. You can use them for patrolling, for just surveillance, obviously, and some have very powerful cameras, thermal capability as well, in which you can see what's happening in the dark. You can see what's happening in certain events where just a normal camera is going to be very difficult. But not only that, you can map out a whole area. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, looking at a map only tells you so much. And also looking at floor plans only tells you so much. I can barely read floor plans. And when I was at the embassy, I mean, we were clearing rooms and stuff. It's like, there's only so much you can see on a map. But when you actually have a 3D model, you can create a dollhouse. And also not only that, but connect that with an outside map. That makes it so much easier because you can also document and say, okay, look, I want Team Alpha to be in this location. I want Team Bravo to be in this location. And instead of just telling people or say, hey, look, here it is on a map, you actually have a 3D model where you can show them. And it's so much clearer, especially if you're a little ADD like me, where I'm like, oh, this is where I got to go, not here. And it makes it so much easier to get the job done. It practically makes it dummy proof.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of the sandboxes we would use.
Right. Where
we got like a straw and a cap. I'm like, this is you. You're this cap. Well, this makes it a visual, virtual. I mean, this is next level stuff.
Right. And the thing is, it's not nearly as expensive as people think. And it makes things so much easier. And I've talked to many people about this. And they actually said, like, look, I wish I would have known about this before because this is revolutionary. And I'm like,
absolutely.
Look, you can use the 3D maps, you can connect it with the dollhouse if your responsibility is like a building, not just the exterior but the interior as well. And then on top of that, you can use the drone for another drone maybe for surveillance. So you basically have everything at your disposal, and it's gonna make securing the facility or wherever you're trying to be so much easier. So even for events, you can use it for that. Obviously, there's things you got to consider. You can't fly over people, especially if the drone is very heavy, if it has a payload, like if it has a loudspeaker or whatever. But there are ways of mitigating it. You just have to know what you're doing, and you have to know the rules, but there's so many ways of doing it.
Excellent. So this is great. So we have a good overarching view of the services you provide. Could you tell me, for the purposes of what we're doing here, what is your target audience? Who can hire you here in South Florida? Besides, you mentioned security, you mentioned real estate. Can you talk to that a little bit so we know what folks can hire you?
Yes, of course. So anybody that wants, like for example, corporate videos. I don't do on the ground videos and stuff like that, but I can partner with other companies that do that. So for example, if somebody says, look, I want, let's just say they're a cruise ship industry, and they want some really nice videos done from the air especially. I mean, you have so much capability of creating engaging videos with drones, and it's going to really generate more views, which obviously more views means more money for you. So for like a generator company reached out to us, and they said, look, we want you to do this for us. We have generators coming in, they're going to test them, and they're going to ship them out. Stuff that took a couple days to do. But I was there and I was filming, and they loved what we did. So any business owner that thinks that they might benefit from this, actually, we did cafes, we did even a yoga class. We started flying, and we
No, I saw that. That was awesome. You did a bird's eye view. You zoomed through. I mean, makes it very engaging. A lot more if you were just walking around. That's kind of boring these days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
So any small businesses to big businesses, we can definitely do that. Insurance companies or property managers that they need documentation for buildings or whatever, definitely something we can do. I've obviously worked with tower companies. I've worked with, I want to work with construction companies as well, to do 3D maps and models of a construction site, because not just is it nice to look at, and you can document, but also you can see progress updates. I've worked with the construction industry, and you see a lot of delays happen every single day, and those delays are not just an inconvenience; they're expensive delays. Everything from even just a simple 1 week delay can cost a company a lot of money. So keeping everything in track, keeping the progress documented, and also so that way, instead of them having to go into the site and see what's happening, they can just look at it on a screen and they can see exactly what's happening, and they can keep track of production and see the problem areas. Also, stockpile measurements. Stockpiles, that means a lot of money at a construction site.
And that's what I was going to mention: theft, logistics, supply, accountability of all that gear and equipment.
Exactly. So those are things that definitely can be mitigated with the use of drones. So those are people that I really want to get, really want to help them, and just anybody that needs any drone services, I'm all ears.
Juan, so I think we have a good understanding of the services that you provide, but can you tell me, when you left the Marine Corps, was this your first choice? Did you know exactly what you were going to do? And what are the challenges that you faced transitioning from the military to the civilian sector? Was it easy? Was it smooth? Let us know.
So this was not my first choice at all. I was actually trying to get into the federal government. After working alongside a lot of these people, or being in contact with a lot of these guys from the 3-letter agencies, also including diplomatic security, I've spent a good part of my adult life overseas. I speak 2 languages. I'm conversational in others. I know bits and pieces of a lot of other languages, and I've been very comfortable living overseas. So that's actually the path that I wanted to go. And I actually did a year-long fellowship when I was attending a university at Florida International University, in which was led by another former Marine. And I decided I was actually doing security contracting in Australia for the State Department. And a friend of mine reached out to me that I served with, and he was working for a company that was teaching people about drones, giving the training, and also was going to get them jobs. Now, unfortunately, that company did not work out the way that it should have, and I had to pretty much pick it up on my own, and which is going to get into the challenges in a bit. But part of me always wanted to run my own business, even though part of me, I wanted to do the government work and all these other things. But part of me is like, look, you have always had a very different vision. You're not really much to follow orders. And actually, I had a former colleague of mine when I was overseas. She told me, you march to the sound of your own drum. You're not really much for conforming. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not. And so I thought, okay, maybe I should do this. And I saw that the emerging technology. So actually, when I was doing this fellowship, it was an intelligence fellowship, and we started learning a lot about AI and machine learning and things like that. I'm like, okay, this is really going to change work as we know it.
Exactly.
So I figured, you know what, might as well be a part of it. Instead of being against it, be a part of it. And so that stuck in my head. And then I've always loved drones. I've always loved aviation, which is why I fixed Harriers for a little bit. And I was like, okay, well, how do we combine this? How do we combine all these different things in entrepreneurship? So I figured, okay, well, this is actually a very good opportunity. So when my friend told me about it, I was like, oh, okay, this sounds interesting. I did the training and everything, and I immersed myself into it. I didn't just do this as an afterthought. I went
all in.
I mean, and it was scary. So after I came back from Australia, I got my Part 107 license, which is the license you need to fly commercially with drones here in the United States. And I went for it. Started my company, formed my own LLC, business name, And then, just started doing market research. And on top of that, to add on to the challenges, I got married, which is even harder.
We'll add another layer. You got married to someone from here?
No. So that's the other thing. I got married to a girl that I met when I was in Australia. So she's Russian.
Oh, great. And you were embassy duty. So you had a top secret. What did you have? A top secret clearance?
Right. Exactly.
Fantastic.
So it was.
Way to rock the boat.
Right. So I'm talking. We're rocking the boat big time.
Yeah.
And I really took on two of the biggest challenges that have a very high degree of failure: starting a business and getting big. Right. We all know the statistics on that. But I figured, you know what? If you don't do it, you're gonna regret it deeply.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, you know what? Instead of living life in fear, instead of just always playing it safe, just go for it. If you fail, you fail. And same thing with when I was in the Marine Corps. I was always, and a little story about me, I was always a very scrawny kid. And getting into that lifestyle where you're surrounded by a bunch of A-type personalities, which I wasn't at the time. It's very intimidating. But I figured, you know what? You're gonna regret it your whole life if you don't do it.
Exactly.
So I said, all right, I'm just gonna go ahead and go for it. I've never run a business before. I've always been a little bit disorganized. I was also diagnosed with ADD. So that's, you add those layers. But I said, you know what? I don't care about all that.
They're not barriers. They're just challenges.
They're just challenges.
They're just obstacles.
They're
not walls.
They're not walls. And I said, okay, no. I'm going to go ahead and go full force into this. Because if I start living in fear, if I start saying, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not.
That's when you fail. When you start doubting yourself.
So, well, you fail at the chances you don't take.
And that's why a lot of smart people fail.
Right.
A lot of smart people fail because they don't even try.
Exactly.
Because they're so smart that they project and foresee all the challenges that they're going to see. And when they count them up, they're like, it's insurmountable.
Right.
And then the folks that are maybe not as intelligent, but they just have a little bit more gusto, dive into it, and then they're successful.
Well, actually, so I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yep,
like
me too.
10 times.
Yeah. Deployed? Did you read it?
So
I read it deployed.
So I was actually in Australia, and I was, like I said, I was sitting down for 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. So I did a lot of reading. And I read that book like 10 times frontward, backward, sideways. And one of the things the guy says, and I agree, is like the people that win in life are not necessarily the smartest. It's just the bold. The people that actually dare to go ahead and make things happen. It's like...
Who dares wins.
Right, exactly, like the SAS. And I said, okay, this is the way to do it. So you go full force. And, like as with the challenges, so I'm answering that question now. I started my business and I figured that, okay, it's a tough game to be in. I actually asked one guy, I did a mapping course a couple months ago, and I asked the guy that's leading it, he's been doing drones for years, and we're about the same age. And I asked him, like, out of all the pilots that you see, how many of them actually make decent money with their drones, whether it's starting their own business or whatever? And he says, less than 1%.
Wow.
Less than 1% of guys that actually start their own business with drones actually make any sort of decent money. Now, I started my company a year and a half ago, and I've been living off of pretty much just that. So everything from the real estate, the towers, corporate videos, whatever the case might be, and now obviously I have a part-time job working with the police, but I've actually been able to maintain myself. And especially in Miami, which is not the easiest place to live, it's
the real estate is crazy.
Exactly, and I've been able to do all that
Rent.
in just 1.5 years. I've been able to actually maintain myself, and it's not easy. And there's been a lot of challenges with that, but I've actually been able to do it. But I found out very quickly, competition's stiff. There's new pilots getting their license every day.
Yeah,
it's not hard to fly a drone. I mean, it's there's a lot of things you got to consider when you're flying drones, but in reality, it's not that difficult. What's to stop somebody from just having their 15-year-old cousin, fly a drone or do something? It's and trying to convince people to do that. Trying to convince people to hire me to do a job for them. It takes work. You got to build that credibility. So definitely, that's a big challenge. Other things is just running a business. Like you're not just flying a drone. It's the organizational side of things. I've never been that organized, like ever. My wife is actually, and hats off to my wife. My wife has been, she's been a huge help, but she helped me out with all the organizational stuff. She actually did my website. She did, she really rolled her sleeves up and started helping me out. And we worked sometimes until like 2-3 in the morning, just
And that's great. My hat's to you, because that's awesome to have a partner. Because as an entrepreneur myself, well, I'm a wannabe entrepreneur, because a true entrepreneur can walk away from his business and his business keeps working.
Right.
And we always have to know the difference between it. We are aspiring entrepreneurs. When
Exactly.
I can walk out of my business and it can run on its own, then I'm a true entrepreneur. But those are some of the challenges, is trying to balance the technician side or practitioner, like you being a technician practitioner as a pilot, but then also now you have to be a manager.
Right.
And then you have to be also an expert in finances, and then you have to know the books. And this is where entrepreneurs fail, because they're like, well, I'm the best artist, I'm the best pilot, I'm the best real estate agent, I'm the best whatever. That doesn't mean you're the best business owner. That doesn't mean you're the best entrepreneur. And that's one of the things, like right now, that you're talking about, which is critical for other veterans to hear. Because too many times folks jump into something like what you're doing, and in a year and a half, you're already ahead of what you're 99% above the 1% that fail and don't make enough money to survive in that industry. Right. It's a red ocean industry. You can have, like you said, you can have drones everywhere. But what's the difference? As someone that has a drone, and which I use professionally for my business as a real estate agent, I can tell you that you are 100% right. I've seen your videos compared to mine, and you can't compare the two. I get away with it because of what I'm doing, but I couldn't get away with what you do. It takes a lot more hours of flight time and hard work at it. And just knowing the capabilities of it. And plus, these capabilities keep innovating. Right. I'm sure now, I worked in biometrics, fingerprints, face, iris. At some point, drones, if not already, drones have that capability also. So I can imagine all kinds of security applications for the future of the drone industry. But that's fantastic. Could you tell us a little bit about your military service and how it's applicable and how it's not applicable? Like you were talking about Harriers first, which I love Harriers. I used to call airstrikes, and I used to call Harriers. I love Harriers. Tell us a little bit about that. How'd you get into that? How'd you choose that? Why'd you choose that? And then tell us a little bit about what you did later in the security.
Right. So when I was joining the Marine Corps back in, so I signed my papers in 2009, if I remember correctly. So it was a little while back. I wanted to do something that I can use when I get out out of the Marine Corps, because I knew that this wasn't forever.
Got it.
I knew it from day one, and I'm like, look, most people that get in get out after their first or second enlistment. Okay, and I knew that, like I said before, nobody really cares about what you did. They only care about what you can do now in the present. So I said, okay, let's pick something that is actually applicable outside of the military. So I chose avionics. I've always loved airplanes ever since I was a kid. I used to build little model.
And you grew up in Miami.
I grew up in Miami, born and raised. And so yeah, I chose that. I said, okay, let me do this. Now, one thing I saw was that what I imagined the job would be a little different.
I think we all do.
Yeah. And I figured, okay, this is not really my bread and butter. It was cool, but actually, so I was working intermediate level, which is I don't actually work directly on the plane. I get all the parts once it's already taken out.
Got it.
And I'm just,
so it's not as sexy or exciting as you thought.
No. Now, I actually did work. I actually did get a chance to work on the actual aircraft a few times. That's operational level. And that was actually a lot of fun. I was like, oh, wow, I actually see a lot of the gear that I didn't even know where it went on the plane. I can actually see it. And I sat in the cockpit. I'm like, oh, yeah, I fixed this and this and this and this and this. So I did that for a little bit. I liked it to a certain extent, but I figured, you know what? This is not me.
But, and let me just say one thing. So maybe that wasn't for you, but do you regret it? Did you learn from it? Did it change you? Or just, even, and what I'm trying to get at is, I think a lot of folks don't see that. For example, shooting, they go, well, I'm a firearms instructor. Well, what does that have to do with business? Or what does that have to, I go, it's not the shooting itself. It is the discipline it takes, the relentless pursuit of being the expert and being the best at that one little thing that I do. And going above most people. That's the part, that's that grit that a lot of our veterans have, coming out of things like that. Thinking, well, that has nothing to do. Yes, it has everything to do with that. Were you late to work? Of course, you can't be late to work when there's Harriers waiting. And I mean, there's a calendar, I'm sure, of when they have to repair them. I mean, this is scheduled to the minute, so. Yeah,
so I mean, it's like you just said, there's a certain, there's a method to it.
Standard, yep.
And here's the other thing. So I was about to go to Afghanistan. I was about to go deploy with this unit. And unfortunately, little bit of a personal story. I was having some issues, personal issues, and they pulled me off that deployment. And to this day, I kind of regret opening up about that, at the time. But unfortunately, the sergeant that I was supposed to go with, who was also an avionics guy like myself, the attack that happened with the Taliban when they went in and basically destroyed a bunch of airplanes, like Harriers.
Yeah.
He was actually involved in that. He unfortunately was killed. Him and the CEO of that squadron. Yeah, that was
during that raid.
Yeah, during that
that
raid.
You were supposed to be on.
I was supposed to be there.
Wow.
And that was a little hard to take. And I was actually part of this 21 gun salute when he came back.
Wow. And that's an example. And please hold that thought, because I don't want to interrupt you, but I don't want to lose this part, because people miss this. People go, they think it's just infantry Marines or just special operations, and you always hear about recon and this, and they don't realize. I mean, when I was a martial arts instructor, and my martial arts, my instructor was administration. Mm-hmm. When I went to Iraq in 2003, I saw him at the Chow Hall. No, actually, I went in 03, but I saw him in 05. I saw him in 05 in the Chow Hall in Baghdad, because it's a small world, especially a small corps. Right. And he was a convoy commander, completely different mission. And that's my point, is like even in avionics, you almost got killed. And your peer did, unfortunately. So all of us are putting ourselves on the line. Right. And it's something that it's a reality that a lot of folks, especially back home, don't realize. And that's why this interview is very important, because I want folks to see that. Like, you were avionics. Oh no, he has not. Later you go into embassy duty, and we can talk a little bit about that, because that's more high speed. And I don't think most folks know what embassy duty is. No, so please, when you talk to me, although I know it, talk about embassy duty as if I don't know anything about it.
Of course. No, and actually, I will say, so the sergeant that was there, his name was Sergeant Bradley Atwell.
Bradley Atwell.
Yeah, Bradley Atwell. Great guy. I mean, that guy taught me.
Bless him,
that guy taught me quite a bit, and I actually didn't know him for that long. But he actually did make quite an impact on me, even back then, when obviously I didn't know this was going to happen. But actually, a story that I heard about him. He went into every shot with his weapon. He's like, "Hey, we're getting attacked. Let's go." The guy went out like a badass. Yeah. Unfortunately, and that's just we
every Marine's a rifleman.
Every Marine's a rifleman, and the thing is, he knew what he signed up for. Yeah. But and I know that his wife knew that. Yeah. But it's an unfortunate thing that happens. But he did make an impact on me. But it goes to show, like, look, the work that we do is important. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you're admin or logistics or whatever. Mm-hmm. The work we do is important. So I did that for a little bit. Did the avionics, and then so actually in those same days, if I remember correctly, is when the whole Arab Spring was happening and stuff like that, and then Benghazi happened, and then that's when they started to need to recruit more people into embassy security duty, because
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, exactly.
See, I didn't know that. Like, I knew you did embassy duty. I didn't know it was as a result of Benghazi.
Yeah, so
they needed numbers to climb.
Right, so they started getting people. And now for me, when I was in the Marine Corps, I wasn't a bad Marine, but I was an average Marine. And I always thought that embassy duty, like, you got to be top of the top. Right, and so I was
I think you're selling yourself short. Embassy duty, you got to be squared away.
Right, you got to be very squared away.
Basically, they look for posters. Just for folks who don't know, and you're probably humble to say this, but embassy duty, they look for the poster boy of a Marine, because embassies are all over the world, which is different. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the different mission between Marines and Army, and why Marines are in every embassy. Marines are deployed in MEUs throughout the world, and at any moment they can go everywhere. We can talk a little bit about that, but yeah. Right. But they're looking for the poster boy that looks and represents the Marine Corps. So they don't look for the fat bodies. They look for the unsat ones. Not that we have a lot, but we have them.
Right. Yeah. No, but the thing is, I was always a very scrawny guy. It's like my entire adult life.
But you look good in dress blues.
I do look good in dress blues. So I was like, okay, look, I tried it out. I was like, as with business, it's. And here's the other thing. I had to extend on my contract for a year and a half. And I was already with the mentality that I wanted to get out of the military. But I said, okay, if I can do embassy duty, awesome. Let's do it. And so for me, one thing that I wanted to do with the Marine Corps is I wanted to travel. I wanted to go and do all these exciting things. I didn't just want to be stuck in a shop and fixing components. I actually wanted to be out there. I wanted to deploy and hopefully go outside the wire and all these other things, because that's what I saw. Like, I saw all these documentaries before I went into the Marine Corps in Iraq and Afghanistan, all these other countries. I'm like, that's what I want to do. So I've always been that adventurous kind of person. So I said, okay, embassy duty is probably the better way to do that because you get to go to all these countries and stuff like that. So I tried out, I got approved, and they said, yeah, no, like you meet all the requirements, you got all your letters of recommendation from the CO, the sergeant major, and all these other people. So you're slated for Quantico. And I said, all right, let's do it. Went to Quantico, and they told us, like, look, this is actually one of the hardest schools in the Marine Corps, and you saw a lot of people fail. As a matter of fact, we're all broken up into different detachments, and that's how it is. When you go to an embassy, is you're in a detachment, and it's only like 8 guys in the entire embassy. You're not in a Marine Corps base, and they put us all into small detachments, and every now and then you saw somebody get plucked out of the class. They didn't pass their security clearance, or something was found. The psychiatrist found something that they didn't like. So you get screened quite heavily.
And I didn't even think of that aspect, which I feel ignorant now. But of course, because you're in another country, and especially looking at our government right now and all the corruption at the highest levels, they're so worried about them. I think the scrutiny that they placed on you, we need to place on these ambassadors and these congressmen and all these government officials that are going overseas. Because you are a security risk.
Right.
And you can be paid to sell information. Yeah. And that's why it's so important for that scrutiny and security.
Right. So actually, our regional security officer in my first post, he actually said, we're like every intelligence officer's dream to recruit, because most of us are men. We like to party, we like to drink, and we're young, so we like women. Like we like to go out and do stuff, right? And then a lot of these countries that I was at, I mean, it's like you're the American, and you see all these beautiful women around.
They're going to target you.
They're going to target you, and so.
And I just thought I was handsome.
He was like, "Oh, I just thought I was."
I had a charming personality.
Yeah, I thought I just had game, and no, it's.
I was wondering why that 6'5" Russian liked me so much.
Right, exactly. So and mind you, I've had certain situations like that when I was overseas. So, yeah, like you have to be screened very, very heavily, and every day I saw people getting plucked out. I was a corporal when I went in. I saw sergeants and even gunnies get plucked out. They didn't want them. They said, no, you're a risk. We don't want you. So we went through that. Obviously, the training, got OC spray, all that stuff, right? And then my first
CQB, house room clearing,
all that.
And how much training did you do on that? Like, was it weekly? Is it monthly? Was it?
So the training pipeline, from what I remember, this is a while back.
Yeah,
this is almost a decade ago. It was, I think, 6 weeks to 8 weeks, give or take. And personally, I didn't think it was that difficult. I think the hard part is just the.
But that's all relative.
It's all relative.
Yeah. Because maybe not to you, but maybe to someone else.
Right. For some people, they didn't even know. I mean, I knew guys that when they were posted overseas, they didn't even know where they were on a map.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was ridiculous, but.
See, that's where that crayons thing came from.
I know, right?
I knew it was after 06. I got out in 06.
Right, exactly.
The Marines started eating crayons.
I mean, there were some guys that, quite frankly, they had no idea where they were on a map. They knew the country, but they didn't know where. I'm like, you're in the other side of the planet. Like, how do you not know this?
It's insane.
I mean, you see some crazy stuff. But yeah, so the training hit and everything, and then they said, all right, first post, Republic of Congo, and there was no Marines in that embassy at all. We actually helped establish that detachment.
Wow.
And it was difficult because.
Of course. Because you're making it up as you go along. You're building the aircraft in flight.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, I've never done this before. So I'm basically a chicken without my head running around. I was brand new corporal. In my job, it came from the Air Wing, which is, I'm not saying it's slack, but it's different. My detachment commander was an Army guy, and he was a hard dude. And I mean, right? No, he was like a Fallujah and all these other places. So he had a certain mentality, and I understood that. Now, me and him didn't get along too well. It was.
But you respected him.
But I respected him.
I was just saying that the other day, but go ahead.
I respected him a great deal, even though I didn't like him. We had a very rough relationship, me and him. He made it clear from the very get-go that he did not like, and some of it was my fault, I'll admit. But yeah, I mean, that was a big wake-up call. And the thing is, like, you're not just pulling guard duty; you're doing collateral duties. You're a self-sustaining unit when you're in an embassy. Yeah. So it's like, I was in charge of at the time. I was in charge of getting food for the Marines. right? And you think, all right, well, food for the Marines, what's so wrong with that? Well, you also have to have enough food to last you an entire month in case the embassy's on lockdown. You had to hire a cook, and you had to pay him. You had to work with HR. I never knew about any of this stuff. I've never been in charge of people in that way. Okay, I mean, the Marine Corps, they took care of all that stuff. I just had to make sure that they did their jobs and stuff like that. I ran production for a little bit when I was doing avionics, and I had like 2 or 3 guys as my mentees. I had to actually hire and be an employer to somebody who barely spoke any English. I didn't speak that much French at the time, and it was difficult. And mind you, it's also a very different culture, very different work culture as well. You know, we're used to, okay, you get up in the morning, you work X amount of hours, and you go home. This guy was a little bit different, different mentality. So doing that, and then trying to learn the ropes, which it's not quick. And on top of that, you're constantly sleep deprived. Like we're doing, you know, we're pulling all these crazy shifts. We're doing PT 3 times a week. We're doing CFTs at least 2 or 3 times a month. Like it was tough. And this guy, you know, he did not. He was very strict, and I appreciated that, you know, but which helped me out in the future. But yeah, it's hard. It was a hard time. And then afterwards, I went to, you know, the other places like Malta, which I was actually there when they were filming the movie 13 Hours, which is about Benghazi. I would run by the movie set constantly.
Wow.
Yeah. I wish I would have known, because I would have invited those, because I actually had some of the guys that actually were in Libya as technical advisors. I actually should have invited them to the embassy, because I was actually in charge of MWR. I was in charge of setting up events and stuff with the Marines and the embassy and stuff like that. But every embassy that you go to, like, you have different duties. So in my entire time doing this, I was in charge of operations. I was in charge of MWR. I was in charge of what else? Food, like mess. I was in charge of supply. I was in charge of what else? Just react drills and this and that. So I had a kind of a wide array of duties.
And although you may not have liked it back then, I mean, do you regret any of it looking back now, and looking at all these skill sets that you picked up that you never foresaw yourself picking up? And now and how does that help your business now? All that management skill, all that, because you just said, hey, I never managed people before. I never did this before. Now suddenly you've got this crash course in all these different skill sets.
So definitely, actually, I mean, look, I view every opportunity, I view every experience as an opportunity to reflect and see what you learn from it. It may not always be pleasant, but you got to learn from it. So, for example, like we were talking about, hiring the cook and stuff like that. You're hiring a civilian that is a local. It's not a Marine. You can't talk to him like that. You can't demand certain things, because it's not gonna work. And yeah, definitely. I mean, like all the skills that I learned, even as a technician and all that stuff, like it definitely shaped me into who I am today, and it definitely helped me out in my business, because not only do I learn management and organization, but I also learn how to handle an incredible amount of stress, because any business is extremely stressful, and the drone industry is no exception. I mean, there's a lot of stress involved with this.
Of course. And with any business, because it's on you. You're
Exactly.
responsible. You're the CEO. That sounds like, and that's the thing. A lot of people go, oh, I can't wait. I'm the CEO of this. I go, are you a real CEO? Because real CEO is going to be stressed. You're going to have, especially building it as you have from scratch and making it into something. And you've already built from just a year and a half ago. Yeah. You've gone so far and got a lot more to go.
Yeah. And the thing is, when I started, I had nothing. I had no contacts whatsoever.
Wow. Yeah.
Actually, the people that I knew, like realtors or whatever, they all told me, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. And some of these people were actually family as well.
Isn't that great?
I know, right? It's fantastic. So I had that going.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I left a very cushy 6-figure job. A very easy 6-figure job. I was making a lot of good money. Left all of that behind and took probably the biggest risk of my life and started this business.
Do you regret it?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Honestly, like, even though it's caused a lot of sleepless nights, I don't regret it for a second.
And I'll say this, because a lot of people have the misconception that, hey, I want to start a business because they think they're going to have more time, more freedom, and all this other stuff, which is such BS. When people say that, I'm like, you're crazy. And this is me coming from, I was up till 1 a.m. preparing for today's interview, preparing for an event that I have later on, preparing for all these different things. And that's what people don't understand. You're putting a lot more work than you would doing a 40-hour week. I mean, that's almost welcome sometimes, but
Right.
overall, no, definitely
I mean,
not.
look,
I like having control of my own fate
same.
and my own life.
I mean, look, it's the thing is because social media is a big thing nowadays, and people think, oh, well, you see all these people taking all these trips and this and that. I'm like, those are the very lucky, and a lot of times that's for show.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
like,
yeah, most of the time it is for show.
right. I mean, look, I can, like I was in Tampa just this past weekend, and people would think, oh, you're in Tampa, that's so cool. I'm like, I was working. It was 3 days, and I was working the entire time. I was going from Tampa to St. Petersburg back and forth doing
Oh, it's a terrible drive too.
yeah, doing drone stuff too.
Yeah.
And people thought, oh, you're a little staycation. I'm like, hell no. And I was with my wife too. My wife was like, hey, can we at least do something fun? I'm like, we gotta work. She wasn't too happy about that. But it's like, people think that it's easy, and people think that because of all these influencers and all, they think, oh, I mean, I'm gonna start my own business and this
Such
and
BS.
that.
Those influencers, they mislead people.
And this lead people all the time. And I say, look, it's a lot more complicated than that. Like, even with drones, people think, oh, well, you're just flying a drone. Well, how hard can that be? I'm like, it's not that easy, my friend. There's a lot of planning involved. There's a lot of things you got to understand, not just with the FAA, but just weather conditions, stuff like that. Like, and not only that, but it's like the client may want something. And if you say you're going to do it, well, you have to do it. You know what I mean? And every client's different. Some clients are a lot easier to deal with than others. And if you don't know how to deal with that, then you're not going to be successful in business. And as you said, it's like there is no real days off. Every day I'm constantly thinking, okay, well, how can I make this better? How can I do this? How can I do that? I'm researching. I'm trying to learn different things every single day. And a lot of times you don't make as much money as you would like either. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've dealt with this as well.
Of course.
There's times where, I go and I have this idea. I'm like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to make X amount of money, but the reality is unfortunately quite disappointing. And you say, okay, well, do I do it? Is it worth my time? Or do I just swallow my pride for now, learn something, get something from it, and then probably make it better? And those are things you always have to think about. Because I've taken jobs that, quite frankly, are not making me a lot of money, but I figured might as well do it now and learn the fundamentals. And if I screw it up, okay, at least I screwed up now, then later down the road.
Exactly, and I think that goes back to military training because you're describing military basics, how we do things.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And also one thing that I learned in the military big time is you got to learn how to swallow your pride a lot of times.
All the time.
Right. In the military, I mean, come on.
Day one, people are talking shit to you.
Right.
Day one.
Exactly. And sometimes you just gotta take. I mean, obviously you don't want to lose your self-respect, but it's like sometimes you just gotta humble yourself out of it. Like how many times have you probably thought, oh, I'm amazing at this and this and this, and then you go against somebody else and you get humbled out very quick because that guy, he may have been very unassuming, but he pretty much kicked your ass.
Yep,
happens all the time.
All the time in business and in jiu-jitsu.
Right. Oh, of course. And for me, it's like, look, the guy that talks the less crap is the one that actually is the one you got to watch out for.
Exactly. Yep.
I learned that the hard way a bunch of times. So it's. And another thing that I gotta think is very important is you gotta have somebody that keeps you accountable. And you guys talked about having a tribe, which I'm gonna talk about later.
Yes, we're gonna talk about that next.
So one thing, about having somebody that holds you accountable. So like my wife. My wife she's not an entrepreneur. Her dad is actually. Her dad started a business right after the end of the Cold War in Russia. And mind you, starting a business in those days was not easy, and he had to deal with the Russian mob a lot.
Wow.
And he definitely has that like Type A personality. I'm actually going to meet him in a few days. We're going to Turkey.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'm a little nervous because I've never met him before.
Oh no, you've never met him in person?
Not once.
Oh,
not once. So that's going to be interesting.
I got some Russian things you can take for conversation pieces.
I bet you do.
I'll give you some stuff. I've trained with the Russians.
So, and the thing is, my wife, she a lot of times she tells me, like, look, I know that you put in the work, and I know that it's been difficult, but you didn't do this correctly. Or I don't like the way you did this. You weren't convincing. And sometimes it's a very tough pill to swallow. Yeah. Because sometimes I'm working on something, I have it in my head, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be amazing. You put it in action, and people are like, dude, I'm sorry. And there's times where I've been on a call with a potential client, and I'm trying to sell myself. And she's like, look, the reason why they didn't call you back is because you screwed it up. And it's a very tough pill to swallow, but it's something that you have to understand that it's not personal, but you just it's needed to make yourself better.
It goes back to that whole perception versus perspective.
Yeah.
You know, you got to see their perspective. You're looking at through your perception. You're like, oh, I did great.
Yeah.
But through their perspective, you put yourselves in their shoes. Maybe they're like, maybe not so much.
Right.
And those are some of the challenges. But that's good to have that, to have someone else that can hold you accountable. Not all of us do, though. A lot of us, we have to just hope on ourselves or seek out a coach or just count on our discipline.
Yep.
So Juan, thank you so much for coming here. Juan Ocampo of Raven Drone Solutions. Please, can you tell us how folks can reach out to you and hire you for your business?
Yes, so you can reach out to me via email at info@ravendronesolutions.com, or you can also reach out to me on Instagram. Just look up Raven Drone Solutions and you'll see me there. You'll see the logo that I have here on my chest, and it should be pretty easy to find. Or if you want, you can call me at 786-690-0449.
Outstanding, Juan. Thank you so much. And we're not ending the podcast. We're just ending this segment. And now let's transition to the second segment where we talk about some topics. Okay, and we want to see your perspective on these topics, because the point of this podcast is not just to be 2 or 3 of us that talk all the time, but to get the voice of the South Florida veteran community here. And for that, I want all the different, and we just talked about perspectives. I want all the different perspectives. So again, thank you so much. And let's transition to the next segment. Welcome back to the Warfighter Sanctuary Podcast. And here we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to switch gears and start talking about our tribe and what we're doing here with Veterans Resource Network and with the Warfighter Sanctuary Podcast. And, you know, I think you hit on something earlier, Juan, where you talked about when you left active duty and you sought to get into this industry, there was no one to turn to. So with that said, let's talk about tribe. I mean, you see what we're trying to build here, what we're building, actually, you see what we're building here, and we're trying to build that community so that folks, so that next time a corporal comes off of active duty, you know, from embassy duty or from avionics or from any industry, and he's like, hey, I'm interested in the drone industry, but I wish I had someone to call. Now they have someone to call. Now they can go to the VeteranNet website directory and reach out to Raven Drone Solutions, give you a phone call and say, hey, I just want to talk to you for 30 minutes. Could give me some guidance. I don't know where to start. Do I get an LLC? Do I get an S Corp? What's the best for this industry? So, you know, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that and what we're trying to do here.
So I think we all need a tribe. One of the biggest hurdles that a lot of veterans run into when we get out of the military is...
We got this one on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
can we start over? I'm sorry,
I
didn't mean to do that.
Let's start over, yeah.
So where was I? From where? From the beginning?
Or I could just when I started answering.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So I think having a tribe is so important, especially for veterans. A lot of guys, we get out of the military and we're kind of lost, a lot of us. Mm-hmm. I've seen this a lot. I've seen a lot of guys that they get out. You know, you get out from this very chaotic environment with a lot of structure, and you get out, and it's like it's very stagnant, and there is no structure. And a lot of guys, it's like that mind shift, you know. And that's and a lot of guys I know they got depressed or they started having difficult times maintaining a job or whatever. Actually, a little personal story. Like 2 months ago, I was on the phone with somebody that was very, very close to taking a permanent solution to a temporary problem, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And, you know, a lot of it was because of a woman. But he also said, yeah, like, I got out of the Marine Corps and I missed that structure and I was lost. And I'm like, dude, I get you, but this is not the answer. There's a way out, okay? And especially, I think, for us guys, I think it's a little bit different. Like, we need a tribe. You know, our iron sharpens iron. You need to have people that keep you accountable. You need to have people that you can turn to. Because turning to your spouse is not always the best idea. I mean, a lot of us have seen that. You know, there's things that I don't talk to, you know, to my wife about because it's not a good idea. It's not good for our marriage. I need to turn to other people, especially other men that can understand that. And I think that, you know, we need to have that tribe that helps each other out. It doesn't do the job for anybody, obviously.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to, and sometimes, yeah, you need that tough love. You need somebody to kick you on the backside saying, hey, like, you need to get this stuff done. And
it has to come from a trustworthy source.
Because
if someone tells me what to do, but I look at them and I'm like, dude, you're not squared away.
Right.
But now when I have a tribe of veterans, Marines that are locked on, that know the standards, and they're like, hey, Andre, you're messing up. It's like, oh.
Right.
But if I see someone who's all jacked up, like, hey, you should do this, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Right. And that's why it's so important. Now, you say we need a tribe. I think every man needs a tribe. I think that's just part built into us. But I think the 1% that joined the military exponentially need a tribe even more so.
Right.
Because we sought that. You know, some of us sought it more than others. Some of us didn't really seek it. They were like, just wanted a job or whatever. But I think most of us join the military to have that tribe, to have that structure, to have that brotherhood, you know?
No, well,
And even if we didn't,
Yeah.
you know, once you get it,
Mhm.
you need it.
Right.
Exactly.
From that point on.
Good point.
And not to catch up, but like you were fortunate that you knew people that kind of helped you find a path that you weren't really aware of or
Right.
didn't even think of. I kind of had something similar, not as cool as flying drones, but when I got into sales and working with car stereos and audio and home audio stuff and smart home, it was because a guy I knew in the Marines who was in the reserve unit with us at Fort Anco, he goes, "Hey man, you're a hard worker. Why don't you come work for me?" And I was like, "What do you do?" He goes, "Oh, I run the installation shop at Circuit City." And I went, I was like, whatever. But I was doing fire sprinkler work.
Right.
I was lost. It is nasty. It is dirty. It is uncomfortable. And I got upset with my foreman one day, and a couple weeks after he had said that to me, and left work, called him up right away. I'm like, "Hey, you still need somebody?" And that led me down a 27-year path.
Right.
It's just, it can be random. So sometimes you need somebody to
Right.
realize that potential in you, because, like you said, out there in the world, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
But
Nobody cares.
amongst us, amongst the tribe, if we see something and recognize something,
But that's why it's important to have that
It's-
tribe
it's
in
very
place,
important.
to
So, like,
have that directory in first, and that's the whole purpose of this. For example, if we get a corporal that gets off of active duty, like I was just saying, and he's like, "Hey, I'm interested in in the drones," he has someone to call. Now, would you take his phone call and give him 30 minutes of your time? Of course you would,
Right.
because you remember how it was to be that guy.
Yep.
It's almost looking at a reflection of yourself, and it's almost a privilege to be there to lend a helping hand, or to give a helping hand, because that's what we wish we had. And most of us are like that. We have the same values, and that's what a lot of people understand. Our tribe, we come from different backgrounds, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, races, culture, but we have very similar values.
Yep.
When it comes to, and when I say values, I'm talking about timeliness,
Mhm.
standard. Even if you don't live by it, you know it. If you were in the military, you know what the
Yep.
standard is, you know what's expected of you, and you're going to work your hardest to try to meet that.
100%. 100%. I think that what you said is spot on. I mean, I've known, unfortunately, I've known quite a few guys that they got lost after they got out. Good buddy of mine, he was actually my mentor when I was in the fleet,
Wow.
and it's been already a decade. The guy's still in limbo, and
Wow.
and mind you, he was older than he was 32 when I met him, which is old by Marine Corps standards.
Mhm.
And we had some long talks, and I told him, like, buddy, you really got to get your stuff together. I understand it's been tough and everything. Yeah, he went back to Puerto Rico and stuff like that. And it wasn't easy. And I said to him, like, look, man, you gotta get your stuff together. And he told me, he's like, look, now you're the mentor.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm the mentee. And so I'm like, look, you need to, like, if he actually moved somewhere else, but I told him, like, look, find the local, Marine Corps League chapter or veteran VFW or whatever, if you need to. If you need to have that kind of those kind of people around you, and hit the ground running, because nobody's going to do it for you.
But you touch upon a point. I'm glad you brought that up, because you mentioned two things. You mentioned the VFW and the American Legion. So let's get into that real quick. And I know we're a little pressed for time, but that's the problem, though. See what you mentioned? I don't think those are solutions for him, because what's going to happen is, and I know because listen, I'll get into the whole thing. American Legion, VFW, great, not for us. Great for Vietnam veterans, great for World War II, great for Korea, great for those guys. Different era. We have different needs and wants. You just said it. You when you were getting out of the Marine Corps, you were itching to start a business. You wanted to be an entrepreneur. You had a vision. You already had the skill sets of management and everything. And then we get out here, and then we face all these actual challenges. And how do I even start? How do I begin? So we need that tribe to have, some guidance to give us.
Of course. And the thing is, nowadays with social media, and I was going to touch on this before, that now is the best time to be an entrepreneur, because we have so many resources like Facebook. I actually got plenty of business just on Facebook.
Wow.
It's there. And the thing is, the communities are there. Now, granted, social media might not always be the best place if you want to have an intellectual conversation. I mean, and we all know about this, but you got to sort out through a lot of trash in order to get somewhere. But that's just with anything.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, you really just got to get out there and you got to look. Okay, maybe this isn't working. Maybe the VFW isn't for you. Maybe the Marine Corps League isn't for you. And it's not getting you what you want. Okay, fine. Well, then look somewhere else. Go on Facebook and see. All right, even if maybe it doesn't just have to be veterans. Maybe it could be just an interest group that you're passionate about, and then just go from there. And you sort of build that. You'd be surprised at the people that you meet.
Absolutely. But that's why we have this, because this is trying to do exactly that. And we're doing it. We're having success at a smaller scale, but I believe in fractal geometry. Like, this is just an example of what can be, and we're going to scale it one day. And this is it. We're building our community. We're building our community, and we're focusing on business and success. And you touched on it, like social media. Social media is a great capability that most of these industries, these veteran-owned businesses, are not exploiting to its maximum. They're not posting enough. They're not putting enough out there because they're being technicians. They're all immersed in their job. I'm the best artist. I'm the best real estate agent. I'm the best drone pilot. You got to do the business. You got to do the marketing. You got to do the branding. That's just part of it. It has to be a balance, or else you're going to be topsy-turvy. So it's critical that we do that. And that's why it's good to have this. And this community, this tribe that we have, our tribe is called the Veterans Resource Network. That's our tribe. Veteran-owned businesses. Folks that as a real estate agent, I've hired you to do some phenomenal work that was better than any drone pilot. But, I was like, oh, you do towers, you do assets, you do all this. And then you came down to do little real estate jobs for me, but they were fantastic, and that's what we're looking for.
Well, to kind of address the elephant in the room, though, that we started talking about with VFW,
VFW,
Legions, and we talked about this in the last episode, is that when you got out and started your business, would it have been helpful for you to focus on cheap drinks and selling raffle tickets?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so the elephant in the room is Marines. Above all else, we're known for partying. Right. I mean, we do everything to the extreme. Just
work hard, play hard.
Yeah, we're over the top, but there's a point when you get lost with that, and it just, if you're with people that are just circling the same drain all the time, and that's all their life consists of, and that's all that their life has meaning for, is sitting around and doing that. I mean, it's got its merits. It's fun. We can go out, party, drink, and all that, but beyond just even business, just finding out new things to do in life that you maybe never thought about doing.
Music, singing. For example, Justin's a musician.
Okay.
And he's working with a vocal coach. She's also a musician. She sings. And they're working on things for veterans to help veterans with post-trauma, or just, anxiety, depression. There's other outlets. And again, these are all great things. At the end, I think those are all great things, but I think those are Band-Aids. I think the real solution is finding purpose. Now, I say that, but purpose could be singing. Purpose could be music.
Could be anything.
Purpose is what you want. Right. And that's why it can't be cookie cutter. I keep saying you can't be cookie cutter. It has to be tailored. But when I go to an American Legion, when I go to a VFW, and I'm a life member, and I love those guys. Those guys are my heroes, number one. I'm not talking trash about it. I'm just saying that doesn't meet our requirements. 100%. Our requirements is what we're doing right now. Our requirements is, I'm a real estate agent. I need drones. I need an inspector. I need all this. Well, I'm going to work within my community. And then while I outsource some of the work and hire you guys, then I can spread like, hey, these are great guys. And then if you do that, and you do that, and you do that, well, now we're force multiplying. We're building our community. And then when we have veterans transitioning from active duty coming here, they're like, I don't know what to do. I think I want to be a real estate agent. We'll talk to Andre. Hey, I think I want to be a drone pilot. We'll talk to Juan. And that's our community. And that's how we empower and help each other and give each other guidance. And then maybe if that sergeant you were talking about, if he would have ran into imagine if we had this tribe when he got out, how would that have helped the probability of him falling into that depression? Maybe he would be like, well, I see these guys doing it. I want to do it. And that's why veterans, we don't want handouts. No. And we don't work well with that. No. Like just handing out, hey, do I get a military discount? Hey, can I get this? Can I get that? And I see a lot of that with these other places. I almost see it's like a hamster wheel, because I'm a member of the Marine Corps League. I'm a life member of VFW, American Legion. I do all of that. And I like it, but I don't see myself going to those meetings every month. Why? Because let me see, they're going to go through this whole thing, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. They talk about the money that they raised, what event, who can volunteer for. I mean, really, I'm giving you the basic meaning for all what I just mentioned all across the country. Now I'm sure there's some outliers there that do different things and cool stuff. Just like we'll talk about that in another podcast about South Beach VFW is doing phenomenal stuff, next level stuff, awesome. But I think it's going to be a mountain climbing up to get all the VFWs to follow suit. We're trying to do something like, hey, you know what? We're going to cut out the alcohol, and we're just going to focus on business, and fitness, success, and networking together. That's what we're all about. That's what we're all about. And a future mindset. That's why, for example, as a real estate agent, I'm focusing a lot on social media, not just for me, but I'm trying to learn it. I'm trying to get better at this whole social media deal. Why? So that that's a skill set that I can give to any new industry in our network. And be like, hey, this works. Whatever you're doing, you need to have social media. You got to talk about what you do. If not, you're cutting out this huge funnel of business, of potential business for no reason. If you just decide, I don't want to do social media, it's too much work. You have to. Well, that's just one aspect. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be on the cutting edge of moving technologies. And how can you do that if you just talk to yourself? Exactly. But if you talk to all the folks, and that's the thing about our network. Right now we have over 70 veteran-owned and operated businesses and nonprofits within our network. Well, that's 70 different potential businesses that have already gone through what you're potentially considering going into. Well, talk to one of them. We have our tribe, and that's what we're trying to build. Our tribe here.
Well, I think it's important to say that if it's an activity that you gain something from. Right. Okay, you gain more knowledge, you gain more skill, you gain health benefits, you get whatever it is. If you're learning, you're growing, you're moving forward, and at the end of the day, elevating. Right. And it's not that we're anti-alcohol or anti-having fun.
No. I'm still going to drink. Yeah, after my 75 days. Like I said, I'm doing 75 hard. I can't drink for 75 days.
Lord knows you and I wrote the book, years back with some of that stuff. But no, at the end of the day, those are the moments where we're cutting loose and having fun, but at the end, let's do things that are just better, positive, to make ourselves better, to make each other better.
I look at it this way: it's you can get together, go reminisce on old times, share war stories and all that stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not going to help you.
Exactly.
That's only gonna give you a quick laugh for a little bit, and then eventually you're back in square one. So I'd rather focus on things that actually to progress.
Absolutely. And that goes back to what we were talking about the other day. Happiness versus purpose. Happiness, if your pursuit is just happiness, and I see a lot of the nonprofits as happiness. Let's go on a hike and have drink and have fun, and that's great. Right. That's great. That's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid. Don't tell me you're saving lives. Because I've heard these people go, we're saving. You're not saving lives. You want to think you're saving lives because it makes you feel good. But you're not saving lives. Oh, but we saved one or two. Okay, maybe you saved one or two. Let's force multiply, because our crisis is a serious crisis right now. And suicide amongst veterans is just a tip of the iceberg. They're always talking about suicide. I get it, because that's what you hear. That's the biggest dramatic thing you could possibly do. But underneath that layer, right under the surface, is depression, anxiety, veterans living with that. Why should the 1% of Americans that join to sacrifice their lives and put themselves in harm's way, knowingly, why should we live with depression and anxiety as a result of that sacrifice we already made? That's not fair. That's not fair to us,
But it's up to the individual to make that happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's up to the individual, but again, goes back to tribe. I feel it's our duty to be there for these folks coming off, because when you just mentioned it, you said, hey, when I came, I had to start from scratch. I didn't know anybody. That's horrible. That's tough. And how much could you have saved with just a conversation? Imagine if you met yourself, your future self, and I always say that. Sometimes I say, you know what? I live, and I look at a little picture. I don't care if it's narcissistic. I look at a little young picture of myself and I go, who would that guy look up to? The times when I'm tired, or the times I don't want to work out, or times I don't want to go on my bike at nighttime at 11 o'clock at night because I got to do my 45 minutes, or whatever it is, whatever I go, who would that guy be proud of? Look at your young self and be like, would that guy be proud of me? Yeah? Okay, good. Would that guy be embarrassed of me? Then I'm not going to do this. But I just wanted to end on the whole happiness thing. The seeking happiness, the problem with seeking happiness, and a lot of these nonprofits, just happiness. Here's a movie ticket, happiness. Here's a free boat ride, happiness. Fishing, happiness. Happiness. Happiness comes, happiness goes. Right. Then it goes sadness, happiness, sadness, happiness, sadness, purpose. Purpose is constant, because whether I wake up sad, whether I wake up happy, but if I have a purpose, I'll be good. Because if I wake up sad, I'm like, oh man, I'm depressed. My body hurts. I go, man, but I got to get something done. People are depending on me, and this is going to make me, and it's going to benefit me. It's not just like, oh, stress. It's the good part. Well, I'm going to make my business is going to grow. I'm going to make more money. This is purpose. That's the distinguishing factor between seeking a life of happiness or sadness,
Right.
and seeking a life with purpose.
And I think, especially today, and because today, you get with social media, we're all about our feels and this and that. The other.
Yes.
It's all about happiness. I'm like, look, happiness comes and goes.
Exactly.
But,
fleeting.
But real happiness comes from purpose. So I looked at it like when I got married. First thing I told myself, I'm like, look, you're gonna have your tough moments with this woman, and we have had some very tough moments in the year and a half we've been married.
Yeah.
Some very, very, very tough moments.
Mm-hmm.
She's from a different country and different beliefs and this and that. But it's about a duty. It's about a purpose. You are you're not always going to be happy, but you strive to make it to a certain point. And you understand that you're going to have bumps along the road, but if you make it there after all the hard work, and that's what's going to give you that fulfillment. That's what's going to give you that happiness. And the same thing with business.
Long-lasting happiness.
Long-lasting happiness. Right now,
useful happiness.
Right now, we're so used to instant gratification. We want to pull our phones out and take a picture.
Bad. It's so bad. And I'm guilty of it too.
Right.
I catch myself and I get so mad at myself. I have to throw my phone across the room sometimes. I'm like, I just spent an hour here wasting time responding to a comment that I don't give a shit about, someone I don't care about.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
We're so into that now. And we want, we post something and we think, oh, I'm so important because people commented or whatever. That's only going to make you happy for a couple minutes.
Dopamine.
And then you're back to square one.
Exactly.
And the thing is, dopamine, it's important, but it's a drug.
It's a drug.
It's a very bad drug.
Fleeting. And it's addicting.
It's very addicting. So that's why you see a lot of people they compromise their morals just to get that dopamine. And we can talk on that some other time.
Yes, we definitely do.
Right. But what I'm trying to say is that if your whole purpose is just happiness, you're gonna fail.
You're gonna fail.
You're gonna fail big time. If if what you're trying to focus on is a higher purpose, whether that's religion, whether that's business,
building a veteran community,
stuff like that, that's what's actually going to give you happiness down the road, because you understand that, look, it takes work, it takes sacrifice, it takes grit, it takes consistency, but you know that you're working for a higher, and it's not just about yourself, it's about the greater good.
Absolutely. Well, we talked about there's no shortcut.
We
talked about this the last episode, or afterwards we were talking about music with AI coming up with stuff. There's no shortcut to happiness, to producing something or whatever it may be. You've got to put in the work behind the scenes. You can't just jump to the finish line.
No. You got to put in work. But the great thing about what we're building here is that it is an honor and a privilege to be doing this work with you, gentlemen, because we're building something for the future young Juan Ocampo that comes out, this future Andre Justin that comes out of active duty. Like, man, I don't know where to start. And then he can call us, and then we can put him. And I always tell people, I don't have all the answers to everything. And I was just mentioning when I get the phone calls all the time, because having a nonprofit, I get phone calls all the time from people, and they'll call in and be like, "Hey, I'm not sure." If they call and they say, "Hey, I'm looking for a Veterans Resource Network," obviously they got the right guy. But most of the calls are, "Hey, I'm not sure if I got the right place." And usually I go, based on that question, you probably don't, but you got the right person, because I'm going to guide you to the right place. And I can speak for all of us, because I know you would answer that the same way. So would you. You'd be like, "Hey, I can't help you, but I'm going to find who helps you. And I'm not just going to fire and forget. Here's my phone number. If that person can't help you, call me again, and we'll reattack and try it again." So with that said, brother, thank you so much for coming out here. It's a privilege to be part of this network with me, because I know you're going to help me build, and we're going to help a lot of other veterans so they don't run into the same issues that you did, that I did, that you did, and we have that tribe that we're talking about.
Nobody's coming to save us. We got to save ourselves.
We got to save ourselves. Hoorah.
Hoorah.
All right.
Some fun, brothers.
All right, Semper Fi. I think we're good. All right. It's a wrap.
That wraps up another episode of Warfighter Sanctuary. Thank you for listening. For more information on Vetranet and the businesses featured in this podcast, be sure to check out our website at vetranet.com. That's www.Victor Echo Tango, Romeo Echo, November Echo Tango.com. Become a Patreon subscriber and get VIP access to the Blue Falcon Show, where we continue the interview with their unfiltered thoughts on a range of topics. Some serious, some trivial, always entertaining. Like and follow our Facebook page to join the community at facebook.com/groups/Vetranet. Intro music provided by Army veteran Sabo of NSA Entertainment. Post-show music provided by Marine veteran Justin Martin of JLM Entertainment. Voiceover provided by Marine veteran Mark Denstead of voicedbymark.com. Until next time, remember, hiring a veteran is thanking a veteran. Thank you for your support.